God series, lesson number 4. Jesus, his birth, identity, death, and resurrection. Right, Jesus, Aosis, is the Greek form of Joshua. Jesus is a transliteration of the Hebrew term that we see as Yahshua or Joshua, and it's contracted to Joshua, which means Yahweh saves, or Yahweh is salvation. And from YHVH, which is in the Hebrew, they use consonants that kind of took away the vowels to kind of save when they refer to God. They didn't want to bring a negative impact by saying God too much. And so that comes from Yehovah, which is translated capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D, all caps, when we look at it in the Bible. And that's the proper name of the God of Israel. And Yasha, which is translated save or deliver. So we see it's kind of where we get the word Yahweh, Jehovah, comes from the same instance. But he's the promised Messiah. When we look at some examples, and I'm not going to go through those in details, but you can, I'll give you the scriptures here. He's the promised Messiah. He was born of a virgin, Emmanuel. He's God with us. In the Old Testament, Isaiah 7 and 14. In the New Testament, Matthew 1, 22 through 23. And again, it's Matthew 1, 22 and 23. And then Luke 1, 26 through 31. Luke 1, 26 through 31. These show that in the Old Testament, it gives the prophecy that born of a virgin. And in the New Testament, we see this come to pass. Born in Bethlehem. In the Old Testament, it is prophesied in Micah 5:2 that he would be born in Bethlehem. And then we see this come to pass in the New Testament, Matthew 2:1 and Luke 2:4 through 6. We see he was born in Bethlehem. He's from the lineage of Abraham. In the Old Testament, Genesis 12 and 3, Genesis 22 and 18 prophesy this. And then in Matthew 1 and 1, we see it fulfilled. He came out of Egypt. Hosea 11 and 1 prophesies this. And then Matthew 2, 14 through 12, we see that, we see that he's sent into Egypt for safety. Then we see him, he comes back out when the threat is gone. Called a Nazarene. Old Testament, Isaiah 11 and 1 is prophesied. In the New Testament, Matthew 2 and 23, again, we see it fulfilled. And again, you can pull those up and look at them, pause the video and look at them in depth just to see that what I'm telling you is true. Crucified with criminals. Isaiah 53 and 12 foretells this, and in Mark 27 and 38 and Mark 15, 27 through 28 both tell of this. His hands and feet are pierced. In the Old Testament, Psalms 22:16 and Zechariah 12:10 foretells this, and it's fulfilled in John 20:25 through 27. That he would have no broken bones. Even with being crucified, none of his bones were broken. Old Testament, Psalms 34:20. New Testament, John 19:33 and 36. Jesus rose from the dead. It is prophesied in Psalm 16 and 10, Psalms 49 and 15, and it is fulfilled in one spot. It's fulfilled as Matthew 28, 2 through 7. There's a couple others, but one proves it. You see, Jesus had a dual nature. The dual nature of Christ is the very key to understanding Jesus. The dual nature means that Jesus was both fully man and fully God at the same time. So again, he's fully man and fully God at the exact same time. I do want to pull up some of those scriptures and read for you. So Luke 1 and 31 So Luke 1 and 31. And I do want to read from the King James Version. Feel free to look at this in the version that it lets you comprehend this the best. I prefer the King James. Some people do not. It's up to you. And it says, "And behold, thou shalt conceive in the womb, and bring forth a son, and shall call his name Jesus." Okay? And then Luke 2, 6 through 7. Luke 2, 6 through 7. Again, reading from the King James here. Luke 2, 6 through 7. And so it was that while they were there, the days were accomplished that she should be delivered. And she brought forth her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. So, he was born. It shows he was human. He was a son. He was human. He was born. Galatians 4:4. Again, this is one of the Paul's writings. So Galatians 4 and 4. Again, using the King James Version. Galatians 4:4. It says, "But when the fullness of the time was come, God sent forth his son, made of a woman, made under the law." So again, a son. He was human that came forth. So he was man. Okay. A couple other ones I'll let you pull up on your own. Philippians 2, 7 through 8, and 1 Timothy 2, 5. So Jesus was indeed a man. He was human. But Jesus was also God. He was fully God. His identity, his deity was intact. Not because he was just a man, but he was also God. So Isaiah 7 and 14 tells us there would be a son named Emmanuel. And then Isaiah 9 and 6 tells us the titles we've read in earlier ones, where he would be called the Everlasting God, the Prince of Peace, the Counselor, the Everlasting God, the Almighty Father. So those shows us that he is indeed God. Micah 5:2, or some other instances, John 1 and 1, John 1 and 10, John 1 and 14. This goes in talking about the Word. And if you're not familiar with the Word or the Logos, it is referred to as Jesus. It's talking about Jesus there. And it says that Jesus was in the beginning. He was, he was in the mind of God from the beginning. That is what God envisioned. He was coming down as God flesh in order to save us and bring us back to himself. And then John 8:24, 58 through 59 is some other instances. John 14, 6 through 11, 2 Corinthians 5 and 19, 1 Timothy 3:16. Let's read that one. 1 Timothy 3:16. 1 Timothy 3:16 is one I do want us to read. 1 Timothy 3:16 states, "And without controversy, great is the mystery of godliness. God was manifest in the flesh." God, the one true God, was manifest in the flesh. "Justified in the Spirit, seen of angels, preached unto the Gentiles, believed on in the world, and received up into glory." This is referring to Jesus Christ himself. He came down, made himself a man in flesh. He preached. He was seen of angels. He was justified in the Spirit, and he preached to the Gentiles, and he was believed on into the world. This is Jesus Christ. Right? Jesus is the creator. Jesus is the creator.